الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم صل والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقان الحميد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأنهم ظنوا كما ظننتم أن لن يبعث الله أحدا وأنا لمسنا السماء فوجدناها ملئت حرسا شديدا وشهبا وأنا كنا نقعد منها مقاعد للسمع فمن يستمع الآن يجد له شهابا رصدا وأنا لا ندري أشر أريد بمن في الأرض أم أراد بهم ربهم رشدا آمنا بالله وصدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Continuing on our discussions on Suratul Jinn, verses 7 to 10, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that, and they thought that as you think, that Allah would not appoint anyone, and that we sought to reach the heaven, but we found it filled with strong guards and flaming stars. And that we used to sit in some of the sitting places thereof to steal a hearing, but he who would try to listen now would find a flame lying in wait for him. And that we know not whether evil is meant for those who are on the earth, or whether their Lord means to bring them good. Now last week, discussing the 8th and the 9th verses of this surah, in which the jinn who had brought faith upon listening to the Quran were inviting these are the verses that are talking about their invitation to their fellow jinn, and how they are explaining how they have brought faith and inviting their fellow jinn to not stay behind, or rather not disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these ayahs are telling us that they were referring to the truths that they all knew. These were obvious truths that were there, and they could all experience, they all knew and they all could relate to. And in specific, they referred to the situation whence they could go to the higher levels at that time, before Rasulullah, that they could go to the higher levels and obtain or steal a hearing, and which was now stopped with the revelation of the Quran. But there came a time where whatever they could do, they could not do it anymore. So they were referring to that as a truth that you all know, that this is something that you could do before, but now that this man has come. Who is this man? This is none other than Rasulullah Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. That ever since he has come, and ever since there has come a time that we can no longer go to those realms. We cannot go in that realm. We cannot go and obtain anything as a fortune or a forecast, as we say, that what will happen in the future. We cannot tell the future anymore. We do not know what is happening. So that is the truth that these believing jinn are referring to when they are inviting to the others. That this is a reality. Bring to mind this reality and think about it, that there is something that is important that has happened, which you must realize and recognize. Now, last week we also discussed briefly some reflections from Mir Ahmad Ali and Aga Mehdi Puya on how they have seen these ayahs and how they have reflected upon these by talking about meteors and asteroids and all that we discussed last time. And these are also ayahs that have a further reference in the Quran. We know Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi has told us in his tafsir that the theme and the whole aspect of this is not only in this Surah Jinn, but it is there also in Surah Hijr, which is the 15th Surah, and it is also in the Surah Was-Safat, which is the 37th Surah. So let us look further into this. And having looked at these views of Mir Ahmad Ali and Agha Puya, let us look at what Allama Nasir Makarim says, and reflecting on the verses of Surah Hijr now, where the same theme applies. In verses 16 to 18, Allah says, وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ وَحَفِظْنَاهَا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ إِلَّا مَنِ اسْتَرَقَ السَّمْعَ فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ مُبِينٌ. And certainly we have made strongholds in the heaven, and we have made it fair seeming to the beholders. And we guard it against every accursed shaitan. But he who steals a hearing, so there follows him a visible flame. Now here, Ayatollah Makarim says that the word istaraka means stealing of words. And there are various different commentaries from various mufassirin for these ayahs. Some say that the objective meaning is that this verse talks about meteors, which are celestial stone-like objects which are set in flame. However, others suggest that the objective in mind is the invisible world that we cannot see but that exists beyond this realm. In this world, the shayateen have no way and no permission to enter. So there is a level up to which they can freely move, but then beyond which they cannot even enter. And it is a protection from shaitan and his temptations. Now, this is another way of looking at it, that this cut-off thing that is being spoken about is that the temptations of shaitan are fought with. And whenever who has the qualities of shaitan is acting upon his temptations, Allah will launch an attack on him. And this will expel and perish all sorts of innovations that he may be propagating, by providing sound reasoning and logic. Now here we must understand that the fight is not physical. It is supposed to be fought with rationality and logic. Many times we will see that we get arguments of all sorts in deen, that this should be there and that is how it is and that is how it is not, which are all people's own ways of looking at things rather than the teachings of Rasulullah, the teachings of the Quran, or the teachings of the Ahlul-bayt alayhimus salam. Now, just as an example, this is not part of the tafsir of Nasir Makarim, but this is as an example for us to understand what is meant here. For example, we all know of this event during the time of our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, that his student Abu Hanifa, who is one of the four Imams, in fact he is called Imam Azam, he is the most important of all of them, was giving his lessons. And in his lesson, on one particular occasion where Bahlul was sitting, that he said that there are three principles that he spoke about. First, he said that it is not possible for anything to exist that cannot be seen, or cannot be felt, or cannot be touched. So he said this, and he says anything that cannot be perceived by the five senses of the humans simply does not exist. And this is not possible. Therefore, Allah cannot be seen in this world, but when we go on the day of Qiyamah, He will be seen. Secondly, he says Allah is the all-powerful, and He has kept qada and qadr. And this is something that lots of us and many of us and many Muslims have in our minds that it is Allah who makes it happen. It is Allah who does it. Whatever we do, whether it is good or evil, Allah makes us do it. And whether it is positive or negative, both ways. And thirdly, how is it possible for fire to burn in fire? It is an impossible thing that fire will burn in fire. And therefore shaitan, who is made of fire because he is a jinn, can not be hurt by fire on the day of Qiyamah. Now we have all heard this. We have all heard this event that Bahlul at that time was there. So he gathered some clay from the ground, made a ball, a cannonball like thing, and threw it on the head of Abu Hanifa, who got hurt. And he had a point to make. Now, we don't have to do this. It doesn't mean that we are saying that we do this to whoever comes on the member there. No, this is what it means is we have to look at the rationale and the logic of it. Bahlul threw him that cannonball made of clay. So Abu Hanifa felt hurt. Physically, he was feeling pain. And he started complaining. He even went to the Khalifa to complain. Now when he did that, Bahlul was asked, why did you do what you did? So he says, why are you complaining? He says, I asked the Imam, why are you complaining? Because it was his teachings himself when he said that number one, that anything that cannot be seen cannot be existing. Tell him to show me pain. Tell him to show me pain, and if he cannot show me pain, that means pain does not exist. And secondly, if it is Allah who makes us do everything, then Allah made me throw this onto his head. So you go and blame Allah and make him responsible. Why are you putting me into trouble? And thirdly, if fire cannot hurt fire, then clay cannot hurt clay. So if fire cannot burn, and the way he is saying that shaitan cannot be hurt by fire, then we are made of clay. Why should clay hurt us? I threw him a piece of clay. So these are the things that are Bahlul very logically thwarted all his arguments. What this means is that whenever we see any innovative things, we don't create a fight in the sense of a physical or a verbal fight. Rather, we fight with logic and rationale. We present logical arguments. The unfortunate part is we like those things that we like to hear, and we don't like to hear those which are the truth sometimes. But because we don't like to hear it, because we don't want to hear it, is a different matter. But every time there is an issue, the lesson in this event of Bahlul is that we must be able to discuss it in a rational and logical manner. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Going back to the tafsir, there are two specific things that Allama has said as examples. He says eavesdropping and spying on others. Now we know these are two things that have been condemned not only in the Quran but many places in Ahadith, and these are amongst guna, that trying to spy on others or trying on eavesdropping what people are talking so that you know and can spread fitna or whatever as we say. And therefore both these are jobs of shaitan. This is temptations of shaitan. These are whisperings of shaitan. And therefore, a spy in an Islamic way, a government, it says a spy must be dealt with quickly and in a revolutionary manner, such that, so there it pursues him a clear flame. Now here he is interpreting the clear flame not as the physical fire, but what it means is that such people, if they are identified, they should not be allowed to spread this fitna that they create because of this eavesdropping and spying. And wherever a shaitan-like individual was to be found, the enlightening people, those who are knowledgeable, must chase them and strike him with the torch of knowledge. Not torch of physical strength, but torch of knowledge. When any such people who come with these eavesdropping and spying issues and whatever, the knowledgeable ones must fight these things, and in response to these shaitanic acts, must provide with utmost explicitness. It's not that I don't like him or I don't like that man. No. It must come with the torch of knowledge. It is explicit. It is open. It is something which is very quickly dealt with, not left for some other day, and with the maximum straightforwardness. No curves and turns in the speech. Straightforward, to the point, but fight with knowledge and rationale and logic. Now, when we look at Tafsir al-Qummi, for example, about this, and we see that Mir Ahmad Ali is quoting this, in quoting Tafsir al-Qummi, when he says that when Rasulullah Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was born in Makkah. Now this is telling us of the situation of the jinn before and what happened at that time. He says when he was born, a mass of shooting stars were seen in the sky. Not one. It was a continuous shower like. So a Jew named by Joseph came to Makkah to find out and asked the Quraysh that is there any male child who was born in their tribe in these days? And the Quraysh did not know of the birth of Rasulullah until that time. So when they inquired, and when he told them that it was written in their books, Pentateuch, that when the last prophet of Allah would be born, it is written in their books, the Jew is quoting, when the last prophet will be born, the devilish forces will be driven away from the heavens by shooting stars. And their access to the higher regions would be blocked forever. That means there is a certain level beyond which they can't go, and it will be blocked forever. And they made inquiries. When these people made inquiries, they found out that on that particular night that this Jew was referring to, a son was born to Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib, which is of course Rasulullah, whom we know. On the same night, we also know that the palace of Kisra, which is the Persian palace where the fire was being worshipped, a fire that was burning without a single moment of being turned off in Kisra, the palace. There was a fire that was being worshipped, that was running for over 1,000 years without it being extinguished. Got off and it was extinguished forever. It could never be returned back to or burnt again. So these are the things. And when we look at verse Safat, now when we look at the ayah of verse Safat, the 37th surah, ayah number 8 to 10, we see that Allah says, لا يسمعون إلا الملأ الأعلى ويقذفون من كل جانب دحورا ولهم عذاب واصب لا إلا من حفظ حفظه إلا من حفظ خطفة فأتبعه شهاب ثاقب. They cannot listen to the exalted assembly, Malayil A'la, and they are thrown at from every side, being driven off, and for them is a perpetual chastisement, except him who snatches off but once, then there follows him a brightly shining flame. Now these are the verses that talk about protection from shaitan or shayateen. That they are those who cannot listen to the Mala'ul A'la. And here, and Allama explains further down what that is, very briefly though. And they are thrown at, that means they are attacked from every side if they try to go there. But if for any reason they go there even once, then a flame follows them until it destroys them. And it is a perpetual punishment for them. And this is something that only happens sometimes. However, the shayateen are responsible beings. Like we know, jinn have also been given the power to discern right from wrong and truth from falsehood. They know of this and they are responsible for their actions, and they will be retributed also accordingly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what they did. Like we all know that our actions, whatever we do, we are responsible, and that we will be accounted for, and we will have to answer all questions of Allah on that day, where we will have to present our arguments or whatever otherwise accept our faults and our deeds that we have done and committed in this world. Now, here Allama tells us that the Quranic term yasamma'un means they want to listen to the news of the High Assembly, the High Council, but they are not allowed. And what is Mala'il A'la? It means these are the angels in the high world. Now, these are some things that are subjects of its own, but just as a brief, it says it is something that is the angels of the high world. And when they are, that is the High Council, when they are talking, these people want to, or these jinn want to steal a hearing, they are prevented from it. And furthermore, he says, the context of yukdafun means repelling shaitan by flames. And thus they cannot even let to approach the realm of the High Council. The word in the beginning of the 9th verse, duhura, is used in the sense of driving off, pushing off, turning off, driving them off. And thus the Allama says that the meaning that not only shayateen are prohibited from approaching the sin of heaven, but also they will finally be involved with permanent punishment also. There is a permanent punishment to this. And this verse refers to a group of rebellious and insolent shayateen who intend to ascend to the high expanse of the heaven. Inshallah, we'll stop here. But there is a particular point here that we will discuss as we go along, inshallah, that says that this is not only for others. We must understand that if we feel and have those shaitanic temptations of misguiding people because of purposefulness or even because of our ignorance, then we are responsible and will face the consequences. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq to be able to understand the Quran the way the Ahlul-bayt alayhimus salam have taught us and implement these in our lives. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin.